Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's podcast. My guest today on Calgary's podcast is Tony Scaffeo of the Scaffeo Group. And thanks for joining us today, Tony.
Thanks for having me, Mario. It's a pleasure.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about what the Scaffeo Group is and what you guys do.
Well, a couple of things that we do. It's actually two parts. One is a training company, and I've been in the sales game my whole life. I tell everybody I know how to do two things. I know how to play the drums, and I know how to sell things. And so I've been fortunate enough to be in that game for many years. So I teach sales, of course, but my biggest category is how to teach companies and salespeople how to use social media to prospect today, because times have changed. We all, go on our phones, and that's where everybody is. So I just show people how to do that. And the other side of my business is a marketing company. I used to run a company called Soundsaround in Calgary, and we spent a couple of $1 million a year in marketing. You learn a few things after 30 years of doing that. And I say this, marketing hasn't changed, just the vehicle has. So that's kind of two things. I'm a training company and a marketing company on the other side.
Okay, we're going to get into your background with sounds rounds and other things, but I'm just curious from your perspective. Let's talk a little bit about that social media world. Uh,
Sure.
you know, where do you think most businesses are with all this? I know it's kind of can be overwhelming for many of them.
Well, and it is overwhelming. And here's what I found. First of all, there's the people who get it, and good for you if you get it. And then there's the people that go, that stuff doesn't work.
Yeah,
Right. And that's because they're afraid of the tool.
yeah,
Right. It's very simple. If you don't know, I always equate it to music. I can play a guitar, but if I give you a guitar and I go, hey, play this, this is easy, right? You should be able to do that, no problem. Social media is kind of the same. You got to learn a little bit because there's some technical things, and you got to use an electronic device. So the people that go, that stuff doesn't work, they're just afraid of it. And what I do is I make you comfortable with it and take away the fear, right?
now,
And show you the easy way to do it.
but the companies can make a big mistake by not being on social media, right?
If you're not on social media, Mario, I say you're invisible.
Yeah,
I mean, the days of going to the yellow pages and looking up,
yeah.
looking up a business, that went out with Beatles and long hair. I mean, it just, the times have changed. And I thank my lucky stars every day that I keep changing with the times, because I don't want to be one of those guys that goes, how do I book an airline ticket now? Because everything, it revolves around, I hate to say this, a computer. I don't agree with it all, but it's just the way, it's not me that brought it to this. It's what it is, and you got to adapt.
Yeah, okay. So you mentioned sounds around. Let's just talk a little bit about your background, Tony. Like, for those folks who haven't been around for a while, but tell us a little bit about Sounds Around and what you did with that company when you were there.
Sounds was kind of phenomenon in Calgary. I think we hit above our weight class. We did. I think we got to about $40 million a year. We had a couple of hundred employees at one time, and we went up against the big guys, the Best Buys and the Visions, and whoever came around. We hit the TV business. We hit the TV business where it went from tube TVs to big screens. Remember the big screen TVs, and right to plasmas, and the prices just kept going up. At one time, we sold the first plasma in Calgary, in Canada, actually. And the first one we sold for $30,000. That television today, a 42-inch, that one was a plasma. Today, a 32-inch or a 42-inch LCD TV is $300. So, but it was a phenomenal business. We went for about 25 years, and we used to do a one-day sale. I don't know if you remember, at the Big Four building at the Stampede grounds.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, we sold $4 million in one day. Now, I don't care if you're selling candy or Cadillacs or what you're saying, $4 million in a day is a lot of business, and it's still a Canadian retail record, believe it or not.
So tell me what was the reasons behind the success of Sounds Around and why it got so big?
We were local. I'm going to say this. I think we were just smarter than the big guys. I went to work for Best Buy as a vice president after we got out of the Sounds Around thing. And what I found is they were just clumsy. It was the David and Goliath thing. The big box stores were to take 3 steps you needed hundreds and thousands of people, where we were nimble and we could maneuver quicker. And quite frankly, we had a sales floor that was second to none.
Hmm.
We just knew how to do it. And I'm going to tell you, the timing was right. Timing. We hit the TV
Yeah.
business. It was a boom, Mario. And now, today, it's just not there anymore. So sometimes you got to know when to hang up your skates.
Yeah. That's true.
Right? No worries.
Excuse me. So tell me, going through the experience of working with companies of that nature, what did you learn about sales that was important?
Well, you take a sales round, which we were calling a couple of hundred people. When I went to Best Buy, I think it was 11,000 employees at that time.
Yeah.
And what I learned was they were all the same problems. I don't care who you are and what business you're in the people business. Okay. And if you know how to manage and run people and can get them to move forward, then you're a good leader. It's tougher to lead today. I'm going to say this, Mario, and I never thought I'd say this. I always considered myself a good leader, but in today's world, there's different attitudes out there and different opinions, and things have changed. And I've had to learn to adapt to it, because it doesn't adapt to me.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of what I've learned throughout the whole thing. The problems were the same, bottom line.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the
Small
biggest
people.
what do you think the biggest mistake is that companies make today, businesses make today?
Training. Yeah, it's real simple. I'm going to go back to my guitar theory. They just come on. Hey, how you doing, Mario? Welcome aboard. We love you. I'll be right with you. I'm going to show you some stuff, and then they give you your office, or they put you on the sales floor, and then that's it.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, good, you're doing great, sink or swim. And then a month later, they come in, Mario, your sales are not that good. Well, what's going on, bro?
Hmm. Yeah.
Right? So you got to show people. And if you can't, look, in today's business world, you can't hire talent. You got to know how to make talent and develop talent. And if you can't do that, it's just going to be a little tougher for you.
Tony, what do you like about being an entrepreneur?
I like learning at my own speed, and I like running at my own speed. Right? In a company, you run at the speed of the team. Right? So if the team plays a little slower, you
Yeah.
move a little slower. Right? Being a coach of a team or a leader of a band or whatever it is, you have to, once again, I'm going to go back to my music days. If we had 5 people in the band and one, couldn't read music or couldn't sing, well, that just stumped you a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it just, you learn slower. So it's
Yeah.
that's kind of what I've learned.
Okay, tell me, you mentioned music a few times here. Tell me your background in music.
I played professionally for 10 years. I was very lucky. I got to play with some famous Canadian artists. I toured a bit. I played in wedding bands. I played in one band that we were kind of like a show band, where we'd start out 50s, and we had 50s t-shirts on, and we looked like we were in the 50s, and then we put bandanas on in the 60s, and then we did 70s music, and then that was the 80s, and then we played Gloria and Flashdance and all that kind of stuff. And and then I went into business, and I hung up my musical skates because it was time.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to be a rock and roll star, and I think I still am in a certain.
So you played drums?
Yeah, I'm a drummer, and back then I thought I could sing, and that's why I got hired. I was a drummer that could sing. If you were just a drummer, there was a million of them. But if you could sing a little bit, you got a little bit of work, and yeah, it was. I had a blast.
So who did you play with that I would know?
Well, I'd rather not say that just because but I did get to play with some famous Canadian bands.
Okay, super then. What do you think that background in music did in terms of helping you in the business world?
In business. So I tell this story in my training. I call it the drum story. So I went to school with a guy who we went to school. We went to music school, and after he was done, um, I after a few years he played a little bit, and I said, well, what are you doing now? He says, well, I quit music. I says, well, why? He says, well, I can't make any money. He says, I went into business. He says, really? And I says, well, what did you do? He says, well, I took my music skills and I put them into my business skills. And I says, well, what was that? He says, well, I practiced. He says, I practiced, just like we did when we learned the song. We'd play it over and over and over until we perfected it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I says, well, what did that do for your business? He says, I just became real good at my business and I started making real money. He says, because in the music business, I just couldn't make any money. You know who this guy is? This guy was me. I quit at 27 because I loved music and I loved playing. But, there's an old saying, never make your passion your business. That's one thing. And the other thing was business it was a vehicle to make a living. Music was fun.
Yeah.
If you could make a living at it, that would be great. But it was, a lot of the times it was like hitting the lottery. But what I learned from music in business, practice, and skill. Just improve your skill, practice of what you do. When I go into a meeting, I'm rehearsed. I go through it at first and make sure that I know what I'm doing, because I'd rather practice on my own than practice in front of the client.
You still play the drums?
Like a mother. Yeah,
I
know to do two things.
How
I
do
know
you
to sell
feel?
stuff and I know to play the drums.
How do you feel when you get behind the drums?
It's magical. It's something that you're born with, Mario. The Lord gives you that, says, here's some talent. It's up to you on how good you get at it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the practice part.
Yeah. You were born and raised in Calgary, right? Or
I
no?
was born in Italy.
Oh, you were born in Italy.
Yeah, born in Italy. Grew up in a town called Thunder Bay, Ontario.
Yes.
A good, a big Italian community, big European community. Great place to be from, as I say. Cold as you can get it in this country.
Yeah. All right. You can't see my shirt, so I'll adjust the screen. But in honor of talking to two Italians talking today, that's what I'm wearing.
Right.
That's what I'm wearing today. What do you like about being an Italian?
Of course, I love the food. I love the call it the expression and the hands and the hugging and
Passion.
it's a romantic nationality. It's very inviting, and let's have a drink and all of that. And that's what I enjoy about being Italian. I'm gonna tell you this, Mario. We were talking about the Italian club. This year, I became a member of the Italian club. I joined a bocce league. I'm in the Italian choir, and I also am a board member of the Italian Sportsman's Dinner. Yeah. I've become Italian again because in the past I was traveling all the time for work and I could never do it. And that was, that's what it was. Now I'm enjoying. I live 2 blocks away from the Italian Hall, and I'm an old wop now. And I like it. So I'm enjoying that.
Where's your, you're known for wearing those, I'm not going to say funny hats, but, the cool hats. But let's put it this way. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Yeah.
There's my hat.
I was wondering where your hat was. How many of those do you have?
30.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Where do you get them?
I buy them, it's funny. You're going to laugh at this. I was in the store one day and this hat was there and I put it on. This lady walks by and she goes, "That looks great on you." right? Well, I don't have a lot of hair anymore, so and my head's cold, and I just started wearing one. But my father wore a hat for many, many years,
Yeah.
and now I like it. It's kind of part of my signature, trademark, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, like exactly. Everybody's got
Yeah.
something like that. So, living and working in Calgary as a business guy, tell me, what are your thoughts about being here and running a business? Is it a good place
Uh,
to do business?
Yes, yes, and no. You've been here long enough. It's feast or famine. It's boom or bust,
Yeah,
and you got to be able to ride those situations out. When in the Soundsaround days, when things were going up, hang on.
yeah,
Listen. It's. I think it's harder to run a business in a booming economy, or just as hard to run a business in a booming economy as it is in a declining economy.
mm,
But I'm going to tell you that it's been tough for probably the last 10, 12 years. Calgary's a bit tougher. Come on, we depend on the oil and gas business. Everybody knows that. And when it's running, everybody's running, and when it's walking,
yeah.
everybody's
Well,
walking.
when you say that though, you kind of look at that. Although it's been tough, I think it's part of the problem with the way being in Calgary is you look back at the glory days, so to speak, and where everything was easy and the money was
Yeah,
flowing, right? And I
yeah.
remember even in my days in working with the Calgary Herald back, especially back in the 80s, and man, that was a good time. That was a heyday of journalism because there was so much money flowing around, right? And I think, even though things now appear to be bad, they're not really bad because I think we're looking at it comparatively to the past, right?
Mario, I always said this. In the call it the 90s, the good years, I said the dummies were making money and I was living proof.
Yeah.
Okay. But it just, you got to ebb and flow with the times, and it's what it is, right?
Yeah.
And to be in business today, you got to have a lot of cash. And if you have the cash, you can ride it through, because there's going to be ups and downs. It's not consistent like it used to be many, many years ago. That's what I find.
So what do you think the key is for businesses to be successful and even to survive in some of these tough times that we're in?
I'm going to go back to my same thing: train your people.
Yeah.
Make sure that when somebody comes in and says, hey, you sell this, what does it do? Or this is your service. Make sure that they're the best at explaining it and selling it to you and what have you. Because look, people want to buy, they don't want to be sold, right? And it's just when people say no, it's just a cry for more information.
Mm, yeah.
And that is the biggest thing: is have, invest in your people, because you're in the people business.
It's funny how many companies don't though.
I'm going to tell you this: that since the COVID,
Yeah.
which slowed down a lot of things, my training side of my business, I was booked like all the time,
Mm,
constantly booked. Then it came back a little bit online, but not like it did before. So, um,
yeah.
and I prefer the live stuff, Mario. I can see your face, I can
Yeah,
read your body language.
yeah,
I
that's
can tell if you're into it or not. Online, but this is the new way, right? This is the new way of communicating.
but I find that a lot of companies and I've been associated with a lot in the past where they talk the talk, right? And
Oh yeah.
it's important to train our employees and they do all these workshops, etc. But there was a disconnect between the doing of the workshops and then the actual execution of implementing what those workshops are talking about into your business, right? How do you
I'm going
How,
to give you an example.
yeah.
I was doing a training not too long ago, or sorry, just after COVID, and it was for an oil and gas company, and quite a big one. I don't want to mention names. I don't like to mention names. And
Yeah.
so we're doing this training session, and I said, "Hey guys, what keeps you up at night, or what's the toughest part of your job?" And this one fellow puts up his hand and says, I just can't get in front of anybody anymore. Nobody wants to go for lunch. Nobody wants to go for a drink. Nobody wants to go for dinner. Right. And I went, well, what seems to be the problem? He says, well, I do a lot of business when I take people out for lunch. Right. And he says, that's where and it's common, right? Go out for lunch, a few beers, that's
Yeah.
kind of like their shtick. And I says, well, I get that people don't want to go out anymore. I says, but what I do when I want to have lunch with somebody is I ask them, what's your favorite restaurant? And I said, and what would you like to, from there? And so I said, what else would you like with that? And I send them skip the dishes 10 minutes before our Zoom meeting. I
Yeah.
have lunch as well. And we have a lunch meeting right at our desk. Well, they thought I had the cure for cancer, right? And
Yeah.
it's just simple.
Yeah.
Right? It's just simple. You want to have a lunch meeting? This is the new forum. Right?
Yeah, no, that's true. But what it all comes down to, whatever it is you're doing, whether you're selling digital services or whether you're selling a hot dog or whatever, or selling a big screen TV, it comes down to that connection with the people thing, right? Uh,
You're in the people business. We're back to that. Yeah.
I think any business is a people business, right?
All, all, not some, all.
Yeah, yeah. And they don't, and some don't get it, and some pay the consequences of not getting it, I guess.
Look, we all, on a daily basis, I'll walk into an establishment and I'll go, oh my God, is this what you got to work with? But then
Yeah,
you go into, some places. Hey, we had lunch at Spolumbo's last week. Remember that? I
yeah,
mean, you go in there, they're on you. There's somebody in line. What can I
mm,
get you? I mean, and they're putting
yeah,
you. I look at that and I go, these guys got it going on. There's no stumbling. Oh, I did. What did you? I didn't get this. And
yeah,
they know what's going on. So there are many businesses that really know how to do it, but there's many businesses that, once again, they don't
yeah,
um, put time and effort into their people.
yeah. So, last thing I was going to ask you, Tony. Now, obviously, you're busy with work and all that stuff, but and some of the other stuff. What else what do you do to relax? Your life
Um,
your life must seems like 150 miles an hour.
Yeah, I go at a pretty good clip. I start my day at 6 in the morning. I'll be honest with you, I'm done at about 2:30 in the afternoon. I just don't have it. I'm sharp in the morning, and I go to the gym, and I work out, and that's kind of my day. But what I do to relax is right beside me. You can't really see it. I have guitars, keyboards, microphones, PA system. So I play to music, and I probably a good 3 to 4, 5 hours a week I spend just playing music. And I taught myself how to play the guitar, and I still like to sing, and that's my relaxation, to be honest with you.
Oh, excellent. All right,
Yeah.
Tony. Pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Mario.
All
All the
right.
best.
That was Tony Scaffeo of the Scaffeo Group. Hey, I was going to ask you, I noticed on your website you call yourself the Chief Entertainment Officer, CEO. Is
Yes.
that how you look at it? Is that how you look at your role?
Absolutely. Look, if I can't have fun at it, here's another thing. I only do business with people I love and I really want to work with.
All right, wonderful. Thanks for joining us again. And
Thanks, everyone.
I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Managing Editor of Canada's Podcast.